All right, so we're going to be diving into prepping for a Prepress Technician interview today, which, as you probably know, blends design and the more technical side of printing. And we've got some awesome resources to help us with this, mainly from RoleCatcher and all their awesome career guides, and they're just giant database of interview questions.
Yeah, it's really like we have a backstage pass to this whole industry.
Yeah.
We can see what the job really is all about. We can decode all those interview questions, the ones that make you nervous just thinking about them, and even show you how to use Rollcatcher's AI to really stand out from the crowd.
I love that backstage pass analogy. So let's demystify this whole prepress technician role. What exactly does a prepress technician DO?
Well, imagine you're like the bridge between what the designer dreams up and what people actually see, like in their hands, the printed product.
Mm.
You're formatting files, making sure the colors are absolutely perfect, troubleshooting any problems that come up with those giant printing presses. So it really is a mix of creativity and, that technical side.
Speaking of those skills, the RoleCatcher Career Guide has a ton of info on what you need for this job. And it's not just about being a computer whiz, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, computers and electronics are super important. Rollcatcher says like 68% important, but design skills are really close behind, like 56%. And here's a surprise for you, Eston, native language skills are up there too at 53%.
Really? Why is being a good communicator so important if this is such a technical role?
Think about it. You're talking to designers all the time, clients printing press operators,
Right.
explaining all this technical stuff, making sure everyone's on the same page and, solving problems when they pop up. If you can't communicate clearly, it's like a recipe for disaster, mistakes, delays, you name it.
That makes a lot of sense. So good communication skills check. Now let's get to those interview questions. RoleCatcher's database has over 120,000 of them, so we've got plenty to work with. So first one, can you explain your experience with Adobe Creative Suite, particularly InDesign, Illustrator, and Photoshop?
Ah, the classic software question. This is where you prove you actually know how to use these programs, not just that you've, seen the icons on your computer.
So instead of just saying, oh yeah, I'm proficient in Photoshop, I need to actually talk about specific projects and how I used each program.
Exactly. So let's say you used Photoshop to retouch images for like a marketing campaign. Don't just say, I retouched images. Walk them through it. Did you use certain filters or tools? What were some challenges you faced and how did you overcome them? The more detail you give, the better.
Great tip show, don't tell.
Okay, so another one that pops up a lot in RoleCatcher's database. What is your experience with color correction and color management in prepress?
This one gets to the heart of prepress because color management is all about making sure what you see on your screen is exactly what comes out of the printer. It's understanding color theory correction techniques and making sure colors look the same across different devices and printing processes.
That sounds complicated. What kind of answer are they looking for here? You want to show you really get color consistency. Talk about techniques like color profiling. Think of it like a translator for colors. Calibration and your knowledge of industry standard color spaces. If you've used specific tools like a spectrophotometer to measure color, definitely mention those too.
So theoretical, knowledge, and practical experience with the tools. Okay, here's one that might stump some people. Can you explain your experience with imposition software? I'll admit, I don't even know what that is.
No worries. Imposition software is kind of a niche thing. It's all about arranging pages correctly for printing, especially important when you're dealing with things like booklets or brochures. So think about printing a booklet. Those pages have to be in a very specific order so that when they're printed on a giant sheet of paper, they can be folded and cut correctly to create that final booklet. Imposition software does all that for you.
So if I've used it, I should mention the specific software.
Absolutely. Name-dropping programs like Preps or Imposition Studio shows you know your stuff. And don't forget to mention the types of documents you've imposed: brochures, magazines, even business cards.
What about the technical details? Should I get into things like registration and bleed areas?
It definitely can't hurt talking about how you make sure registration is perfect. That's, making sure colors and elements on different pages line up perfectly, and how you manage bleed areas, extending that printed area a bit beyond the edge where it'll be cut. All those little details can really impress an interviewer.
This is great. We're getting into the nitty-gritty here. And you know what's even more helpful? RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze the job description you're applying for and help you tailor those sample responses to match the keywords and skills they're looking for.
Yeah, that's the power of AI. It's like having a personal coach who knows exactly what the employer wants to see. It can even point out any weaknesses in your answers and suggest ways to improve them.
That's incredible. Okay, let's keep going. How about this one? Can you explain your experience with digital proofing systems?
This one's all about showcasing your ability to make those high-quality proofs clients see before the final print run. You want to emphasize your understanding of color accuracy and detail, making sure those proofs are a true representation of the final product.
Should I mention specific systems I've used?
Definitely. If you've worked with systems like Epson SureColor or HP DesignJet, mention them. Explain how you use these systems to create proofs that are as close to the final printed piece as possible, in terms of color detail and just the overall look.
What about the more technical stuff? Should I mention things like calibrating the equipment for different types of paper, or my understanding of color management and the whole proofing process?
Absolutely. That shows you're not just pushing buttons, you understand how to get consistent results.
Great tip.
Mhm.
Okay, this one focuses on quality control. Can you explain your experience with pre-flighting software?
Pre-flighting is all about patching errors before they become expensive printing mistakes. This software is like your detective tool. It helps you find low-resolution images, missing fonts, incorrect color spaces, and all those other little things that can cause major headaches when you actually start printing.
So when I answer this question, I should mention the specific pre-flighting software I've used, like Flight Check or PitStop Pro, and then talk about the types of errors I've caught and how I fix them.
Exactly. Were you like a font detective tracking down those missing files? Did you have to call the designer for a higher resolution image? Those details show you're a problem solver and you have that meticulous attention to detail that's so important in this job.
And I shouldn't forget to mention how I communicated those errors to the team.
Right.
That clear communication is always key.
You got it. Highlighting how you communicate with clients or colleagues to resolve errors shows you can work well with others, which is a huge plus in any team environment.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. This one's less about technical skills and more about, how you work. How do you manage and organize your workload in Prepress?
This one's all about your organizational skills and time management. The interviewer wants to know if you can juggle multiple projects, meet deadlines, and stay calm under pressure.
So should I talk about my organizational style and the tools I use, like project management software spreadsheets or even just a good old-fashioned to-do list?
Exactly. And don't just list the tools, explain how you use them. Do you prioritize tasks based on urgency and importance? Do you have a specific method, like the Eisenhower matrix or the Pomodoro technique? Sharing those insights shows you're organized and in control.
Like giving them a peek inside my brain. Okay, back to a more technical question. Can you explain your experience with variable data printing? I could use some help with this one.
No problem. Variable data printing, or VDP, is all about creating personalized materials. Think direct mail with your name and address, or even personalized business cards. It's merging data with design to create those unique elements.
So I should talk about the specific software or hardware I've used, like Xerox FreeFlow or HP SmartStream, and the types of personalized products I've created.
Yes, and go a step further than just listing them. Explain how you make sure the data is merged correctly, how you position images accurately, and how you keep an eye on quality throughout the whole process. Those details show you really understand VDP.
This is great. Now, if I were using RoleCatcher to prep for this question, how would their AI help?
Let's say the job description mentioned needing experience with direct mail campaigns. RoleCatcher's AI would pick up on that and suggest you focus your answer on your experience creating those personalized mail pieces using VDP. It might even suggest specific examples and talking points to help you really nail the job requirements.
Wow, that's like having a personalized cheat sheet. Okay, next question. Can you explain your experience with large format printing?
Think Big Banner's vehicle wraps those giant displays you see at trade shows. This is all about your experience with the specialized equipment and techniques needed to produce these eye-catching pieces.
So I should talk about specific printers I've worked with, like Roland VersaWorks or HP latex printers, and the different types of materials I've used, like vinyl fabric or rigid substrates.
Exactly. And don't be shy about the technical details. Color management registration, making sure those images are positioned perfectly on huge surfaces. Those details show off your expertise.
Okay, I'm feeling more confident already. Last question for this section. Can you explain your experience with digital asset management systems?
This goes beyond the actual printing process. It's all about organization and efficiency. A digital asset management system, or DAM, is basically a huge library for images, videos, and design files. It's essential for keeping track of all those assets, making sure everyone on the team has access to the right files, and avoiding those version control nightmares.
So should I mention specific software I've used, like Widen Collective or Binder, and explain how I organize files, tag them, create folder structures, and manage different versions?
Exactly. And to really stand out, connect it back to that fast-paced pre-press world. Explain how using a DAM system saves everyone time by making it easy to find the right files, get rid of duplicates, and make sure everyone's working with the latest versions.
This has been incredibly helpful. We've covered a ton of ground, but there's still more to come. We'll be back to explore even more questions and strategies for totally crushing that Prepress Technician interview.
Definitely stay tuned. We're just getting started. Welcome back. We're diving right back into those Prepress Technician interview questions. And remember, it's not just about knowing the software.
RoleCatcher's Career Guide really emphasizes those personality traits and work habits, too. Like, they say, strong attention to detail is key. Makes sense. I mean, one tiny error in prepress can snowball into a huge, expensive mess once you start printing.
Exactly. So when you're answering those questions, think about how you can show off your meticulous side. Maybe you have a system for triple checking measurements or a story about how you caught a tiny error that saved the day. Those real-life examples make your answers way more interesting. Like those spot the difference puzzles. Except in prepress, those differences can have some serious real-world consequences.
Exactly. Now, RoleCatcher's database had tons of questions about troubleshooting and problem solving,
Yeah.
which makes sense, right? Things can go wrong in printing. So here's one that came up a lot. Describe a time when you had to troubleshoot a problem in the prepress process. What steps did you take?
All right, this one definitely needs a specific example. I can't just say, I'm a great problem solver.
Right, you need a story. Choose a situation where you faced a real challenge, maybe a file that wouldn't open, or a color mismatch between the proof and the actual print. Walk them through how you figured out what was wrong, tested different solutions, and finally found the fix.
Like a detective show piecing together the clues. But instead of a crime scene, it's a prepress puzzle.
Exactly. Be specific about what you did, the tools you used, and how you communicated with everyone involved. And here's a bonus tip. If you can quantify the impact of your solution, it's even better. Did you save the company money or prevent a delay? Those details matter. Quantify the impact. Got it. Okay, here's a related question from RoleCatcher. What are some common pre-flighting errors, and how do you fix them?
This builds on what we talked about before with pre-flighting software. But now they're digging deeper into your knowledge of those potential problems. They want to see that you know what can go wrong and how to deal with it.
So I should just list a bunch of common errors.
Yeah.
Like low-resolution images, missing fonts, wrong color spaces, and so on.
Yes, but don't just list them, explain how you'd fix them. Like, for a low-resolution image, would you ask the designer for a better one? Or try to improve it yourself using Photoshop. For missing fonts, would you find a substitute or ask for the original files?
Like having a whole toolkit of solutions.
Exactly. And remember, communication is key. Mention how you'd clearly explain the problem and your solution to the right people, whether it's the designer, the client, or the printer operator.
Okay, communication, got it. Speaking of which, here's a question that's all about that. How do you handle a situation where a client is unhappy with a printed piece?
This is all about professionalism and customer service, but also problem solving. You want to show you can stay calm, think clearly, and find solutions that make everyone happy.
So should I walk them through a made-up scenario?
Yeah, definitely start by showing you care about making the client happy. You could say something like, I understand this is frustrating and we'll work together to fix it. Then explain what you do.
Okay, so if a client was unhappy about a color mismatch, I could say, first, I'd look at the printed piece and compare it to the digital proof. Then I'd investigate what could have gone wrong, like a calibration problem or an error in the file.
Exactly. Then explain how you'd fix it, whether it's reprinting, offering a discount, or finding some other solution. The key is to be professional understanding and focused on finding a solution, even when things are tough.
Like those choose-your-own-adventure books. But instead of exploring a fantasy world, it's about navigating a client issue. Okay, here's one that's got me stumped. Can you explain your experience with trapping?
Don't worry, trapping sounds way more complicated than it actually is. It's a technique to stop those gaps or white lines from appearing between different colors when you print something. Imagine a red circle next to a blue square. If the alignment's a tiny bit off, you might see a thin white line between them. Trapping overlaps the colors a bit to stop that from happening.
Like giving the colors a little buffer zone.
Exactly. So when you answer this question, show off your knowledge of trapping techniques. Have you used specific software features for it? Can you explain different methods like choke and spread?
Okay, so showing I get the concept and how to use it with different tools.
Exactly. Now this one might throw some people off. How do you stay up to date with the latest trends and technologies in the printing industry?
This one feels less technical and more about, my commitment to learning. But I don't want to sound generic.
Be specific. Mention industry magazines you read, like Printing Impressions or What They Think, conferences you've attended, like the Print UV conference or the FESPA Expo.
Name dropping to show I'm actually involved?
Exactly. You can even mention online communities or forums where you connect with other Prepress people or industry experts you follow on social media.
Like proving I'm part of the community, always learning and growing.
Right now, let's talk about how RoleCatcher's AI can help you with these questions. Imagine you're applying for a job that's all about innovation and staying ahead of the game.
I'm listening.
RoleCatcher's AI would see that and suggest you talk about those conferences you've attended, your contributions to online forums, or any personal projects where you tried out new printing tech. It would even help you phrase your answers to really resonate with the employer.
Like an AI career coach that's always looking out for me,
Yeah.
feeling more confident with each question. What else should we cover?
Let's look at questions about different printing processes and techniques. For example, can you explain the difference between offset printing and digital printing?
Ah, the classic printing methods battle. This seems like something every Prepress technician should know.
Definitely. But you need to go beyond just defining each one. Show you understand their pros and cons and when to use which.
So for offset, I'd talk about how it's great for large quantities and high quality.
Hmm.
And for digital, I'd focus on how flexible it is for small runs and personalization.
Exactly. You could even mention specific projects where you chose one method over the other and why. Like for a client's big brochure order, I recommended offset because it was more cost effective for the volume. But for personalized invitations, I suggested digital because it could handle the variable data.
Connecting my knowledge to the real world. Now, what if they get even more specific? Like, can you explain the different types of binding?
This is all about those finishing touches. There are so many ways to bind printed materials, and each one has its purpose. Show off your knowledge of common types like saddle stitch, perfect binding spiral, and wire row.
So describe each method and what it's typically used for. Like saddle stitch is for magazines and booklets, while perfect binding is more for paperback books and reports.
Exactly. And again, if you can relate it to your own experience, it's even better. Like for a client's training manual, I recommended spiral binding so the pages would lay flat and be easy to use.
This is amazing. We're really getting into the nitty-gritty of what a Prepress technician needs to know.
It's a role that needs both technical skills and a broad understanding of the entire printing process, from prepping the files to those final touches.
Now, how can RoleCatcher's AI help me prepare for these more specific questions?
Let's say you're applying to a company that specializes in high-end magazines. RoleCatcher's AI would see that and suggest you brush up on binding methods used for magazines, like perfect binding and saddle stitch. It might even give you extra resources to really learn those areas.
That's so helpful. It's like a personalized study guide. I'm feeling more and more ready with each question.
That's what we're here for. Practice makes perfect. And with the right tools, you can walk into that interview feeling confident and ready to impress.
Okay, so we're back and ready for more interview tips and tricks. We've covered a ton, from technical skills to, problem solving and even how to deal with those tricky client situations.
Yeah, it's amazing how much goes into being a Prepress technician. But remember, we don't want to overwhelm you. We want you to walk into that interview feeling good and ready to go.
Exactly. And speaking of feeling good, let's talk about RoleCatcher's AI and how it can help you really ace that interview. Before the break, we were talking about how it analyzes job descriptions and gives you tailored responses. What else can it do?
Well, it can actually analyze your practice interviews. RoleCatcher has this feature where you record yourself answering questions just like in a real interview, and then their AI gives you feedback.
Wait, hold on. AI that can watch my video and tell me how I'm doing. That's next level. What kind of feedback does it give? Does it tell me if my outfit's okay?
It's more about what you say and how you say it. Things like clarity, pacing, body language, even your tone of voice. It can even point out those filler words we all use like and like. That can be distracting.
Wow, that's so helpful. It's like having your own personal coach, watching your every move and giving you tips. I know I get nervous in interviews, so this would be a game changer.
Definitely. And by practicing with this AI feedback, you can really polish your interview skills and feel way more confident.
So we've covered technical skills, problem solving, communication personality, and even using AI for practice. Is there anything else we need to know to really nail this Prepress technician interview?
There's one more thing that can make all the difference: enthusiasm. This job isn't just about knowing the technical stuff, it's about passion for the printing process, having a good eye for detail, and wanting to create amazing printed materials.
So even though it's technical, I should let my personality come through.
Absolutely. Let them see how much you love design and printing. Talk about projects you're proud of, what excites you about the industry, and why you want this specific job. They want to see that spark, that genuine interest.
Makes sense. No one wants to hire someone who seems bored or unenthusiastic.
Exactly. Your passion can be just as important as those technical skills.
Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything you need to know to rock that Prepress Technician interview. We went over the key skills, answered those tough questions, and even explored how RoleCatcher's AI can give you that extra boost.
I'm positive anyone listening to this deep dive will walk into that interview feeling prepared, confident, and ready to impress.
But before we go, here's a final thought.
Yeah.
The RoleCatcher Career Guide mentions that the pre-press world is fast-paced with lots of deadlines and that need for super attention to detail. Some people thrive in that kind of environment, while others might find it a bit stressful.
That's a great point. While you're prepping for this interview, it's also a good time to think about your own work style. Do you like that challenge of being precise and meeting deadlines? Or do you prefer a more relaxed pace?
It's not just about getting the job, it's about finding the right job for you.
Exactly. Knowing yourself can help you not only ace the interview, but also make sure this is the right career path.
Great advice. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you feel ready to take on that pre-press technician journey.
Best of luck with your interview. We're rooting for you.